Hi, guys. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If you just happen to find me and you're not a subscriber, I hope you like my work and that you'll hit that button and help me out and be a subscriber. And please tell your friends. So, I want to talk a little bit about how I think too many Democrats, or at least anti-Trump people, um, are demanding purity in terms of political opposition to Trump. And I guess what I'm doing is I'm chastising you a little bit. But sometimes we have to do that, and people could do it to me as well. Lisa Murkowski, Republican senator from Alaska, she says that every Republican senator is afraid of Trump. She says, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real. And I've had seen people say that these cowards should be removed from office. Well, yeah, but we we're feeling so many things right now. We're angry, we have rage. And then for a while we were like deer caught in the headlights. We didn't know what to do when Trump first got into office and started creating the chaos. And that's part of the plan. Putin understands how a dictator gets hold of a country like that. And that's what it is, the element of surprise. So now we're starting to get our footing a little bit. But I've seen people criticize her a lot. And they're saying, but we don't like her voting record, or why didn't she speak up before? Um, okay, that hurts us in terms of accountability. And I think that we need to stop demanding that our allies against Trump, Republican allies against Trump, need to be people whose voting record we support. That's not realistic. I think we're talking about apples and oranges. And I think we need to support them and encourage this. It doesn't mean we support Porter on all of our votes. And I say this as a former Republican. I was one of those rhinos. And again, I left the GOP the day after they nominated Trump. And I'm a former RNC spokesperson, a former leadership staffer, and spent about 20 years on TV as a GOP pundit. And Trump, ended all of that. So look at Adam Kinzinger. Look at Liz Cheney. And when she was standing up to Trump and lost her career, lost her congressional seat as a result, and she was the January 6th committee leader, remember? And she didn't let his threats and fear of retaliation deter her from her job. And yes, it ended her job, that job, but she did her job. The only way for her to have saved her congressional seat was to be in lockstep with Trump on everything and cover up his crimes, and she wasn't willing to do that. So not all good leaders are meant to be in office forever, okay? The goal should not be to stay in office as long as possible. You have to fight while you're in there. Adam Kinzinger, same thing happened to him. He fought. And if he didn't, he seems like the type of guy that probably wouldn't be able to live with himself. Oh, he may still have a congressional seat, but he'd have to be kind of MAGA, you know? So stop demanding that you agree with these people on their votes, even for pretty big important issues. For our purposes now to save this country, really Republicans are our only hope. We need them to stand up to Trump. We need them to speak out. And we already know that the more of them that do, the better off it is for all of us, and the more of them then that will speak out. So to slam Lisa Murkowski and say, yeah, but we hate her because she sure does vote with Trump on X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But folks, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the possible. And stop demanding these purity tests. Stop demanding that in order for you to support her, to support Senator Lisa Murkowski speaking out against Trump, and you're not going to support her for doing that. You don't have to support everything about her, but you should be 100% behind her on that. There should be no daylight between what she's doing there and what we need to save this country. So I was not happy to see people slamming her. And I felt the same way when people were slamming Liz Cheney. She was being a hero. And they're like, yeah, but her vote on this, and she said this 5 years ago. Yeah, you got to be smart about this, folks. It's a strategy. Lead with your head instead of your heart. Because I think on our side, our heart does lead our head. But stop demanding purity on this stuff. You're not going to encourage other Republicans in office to step forward and speak out against Trump, knowing there's safety in numbers, unless you support them politically. That's ridiculous. It's harmful. And you don't even have to hold your nose. Just encourage this. And remember a few weeks ago, Senator Roger Wicker, he's the Republican, obviously, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and joined with the ranking member to send a letter to Trump demanding, and made public, demanding an expedited IG investigation into the signal chats by our highest intelligence officers, who then lied under oath to Congress. Okay? Sometimes the more establishment Republicans that were there in office long before Trump, they're a little more willing to step forward. And you say, yeah, but why didn't they do it earlier? Think strategy. Think strategy. And remember, too, with that early debt ceiling fight, and Trump wasn't even in office yet, and he and Elon Musk were threatening Republicans in the House if they didn't vote with him the way he wanted on the debt ceiling. And Elon Musk was threatening to spend whatever it took to primary these Republicans unless they voted the way Trump wanted them to. Now, these House members were voting maybe with some lobbyists who wanted them to, but were their constituents. Remember, it's their constituents who elected them. That's who they work for, not Donald Trump. So there was one Republican who anonymously did say to a reporter when they were discussing the threats, basically the threats coming from Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and this Republican House member said, well, as it turns out, 170 Republicans voted against what Trump wanted on that. And so this congressman said anonymously, what, they're going to primary 170 of us? That really struck me, and I've thought about that a lot since then. Safety in numbers. And yes, we as Democrats can help increase those numbers and let them know that we will support this aspect of what they're doing. And we will help them be safe so that we can grow the number of Republicans that will work against Trump and speak out against Trump. So when you have that urge to say, yeah, but I hate the way this Republican senator or House member voted on X, Y, and Z or everything, if they are now speaking out against Trump and voting against Trump, please support that. You don't have to vote for them. You don't have to give them money, but don't slam them. Encourage it. Encourage them to do that. If you are one of their constituents, encourage them to do that. Encourage it on social media. Let's give them that safety in numbers that they need. Because Trump wants them to be afraid. Trump wants them all to think, oh my God, he's going to Liz Cheney me, or whatever. And we have to let them know that that's not necessarily going to happen to them. So we have to get off the purity test bandwagon. And by the way, this is different than what I was saying in the last few years when I say, be careful about these pundits that you're listening to because they have clever tweets or super PACs. They're telling you to send them their money that they then pocketed. These were not people who were in office. These were just, some grifters and pundits that you needed for entertainment that then took the money you sent them, and rather than spend it to elect Democrats, they pocketed it. Okay. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about, the clever tweets guy who was for Trump, then against Trump, then for Trump, and then against Trump again. They do this, put their finger in the air to see which way the wind is blowing and to see what's best for them so they can get something out of it personally. That's on you too. If you support people because they entertain you or they tell you what you want to hear. I think we're all a little bit more sophisticated now than we were a few years ago. We have to be. We've been forced to be. And as I've said before, we realize that the cavalry isn't coming to save us. We are the cavalry. So we have to be discerning and strategic and smart and then move forward in a very strong manner when we can, when we have the protest and we show up. Again, as I've shared with you, when we had our local protest in my town in Maryland, and I was there with my high school gal pals, people I've known since I was 14, 15 years old. And I saw other people, and some of them a couple years ago, I didn't even know their politics. And I saw people there that up until that time, I didn't know their politics. These are nice people. They wanted to be quiet. They don't want it to interfere with their job or their friends or their social. but that something happened. These are not political people. They've never been political activists, but something has made them step up and put their country first, priorities, and to realize that no one's coming to save us. We're it. So I think we need to recognize that with Senator Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. It's a little tougher one, I know. Mitch McConnell, I think he's just trying to, he realizes what he's done to this country. He might be trying to make up for it now that he's retiring and he's sick and he's old. And maybe when he's facing his maker, there's some of that involved. Rand Paul, I don't know. He's a wild card. I don't know if we'll ever, get him to do what we need him to do. But it's really important in the House. And the reason it's important in the House, if we can pick off a few Republicans who might be willing to do the right thing, and people that'll put their country first and oppose Trump and speak out and vote against him. We don't need that many, do we? You get just a handful of Republicans in the House who simply cannot abide by what Trump is doing, eliminating due process, threatening elected members of Congress, threatening people who wrote books against him, like he's doing against Miles Taylor. He's demanding that DOJ investigate him because Miles Taylor was chief of staff of Homeland Security when Trump was president. He wrote the book Anonymous. And then when he left that job, he's all over TV and selling books and everything. It's a little icky. I don't have a problem with people writing books, but I do have a problem with people being a Trumper and then all of a sudden pretending they see the light, when it works out for them. They knew. But should that mean you get investigated? No. Two different things. You cannot support what they did or how they do it. And you can say, well, they're a grifter. But for Trump to then weaponize the DOJ against these people, no. That's going too far. So I think that we will be able to get, if we're strategic, which is what I'm trying to do. If we're strategic, and we know great when you get a few reliable senators on our side that can stop some of the Trump shenanigans in the Senate. I think we still need a couple more, though. But the House, too. With the House, we need fewer people. Republican majority is so slim in the House. So let's keep our eye on the ball. I'm not saying give any elected official a pass on a vote that you can't stand or a series of votes or a lifetime of votes that you can't stand, but it's really critically important now for us to know the assignment. And the assignment is to encourage Republican members of Congress, Republicans in the House and Senate, and governors to oppose Trump on matters of great importance. And I think we can do that. So the latest, of course, Lisa Murkowski saying every Republican senator is afraid of Trump, rather than slam them and say, well, then they should all be defeated. Well, yeah, but that just saying that doesn't make it happen. What that tells us is that there are Republican senators who hate Trump, who secretly despise him, who want him gone, who don't appreciate the fear they have to live under because of him. These are not the red hat wearing toothless MAGA rally goers who are true believers. There are some in the Senate who are, of course. But most of the Republican senators are not. I guarantee you they despise Trump. And some might be more willing to step forward and oppose him than others. But we know what our starting point is. We know that they despise him and they fear retaliation. Okay. The minute they get a little bit of courage or encouragement to know that there's safety in numbers and we help, I don't know how we help them. We're not going to vote for them, but we have to make sure that we're at least not slamming them. It's called building a coalition. And remember, I worked on Capitol Hill for many, many years, and it was before things were so polarized. Republicans and Democrats worked together a lot on many, many, many things. The big things that made the news that there were splits on, the rest of the country, I guess, defined Congress by those splits and those fissures and the separations. But the number of issues, the thousands of bills, seemingly small bills and amendments that are introduced every year, and the things that actually come up for votes and in hearings and markups, Republicans and Democrats work together all the time. And sometimes you can't tell. I mean, the votes are so mixed up with both sides on, Republicans and Democrats voting yay or nay, that you can't even tell. It's not all partisan is what I'm saying. People in Congress understand the importance of building coalitions. So most of us have not had to spend our lives being political strategists, but I think now in this era, finally, as I told you, I talked about my friends, like high school friends at our town square at the protest earlier this month. People had never been political before, or I couldn't even tell you what their politics were. Here they were. Some of them used to be MAGA, or at least they supported Trump. They voted for Trump. I don't know if that makes you MAGA. If they faded away by 2020, or at least certainly by 2024. So those are people who, again, in their own little corner of the world are becoming political strategists, not by choice, but just, that is what we're all doing. So we could be a little bit more sophisticated about this. And that means appreciating Lisa Murkowski and those like her. Okay. We appreciated Liz Cheney, but I did see a lot of Democrats hitting her really, really hard because of her votes that they disagreed with. There's a time and a place for that. But when you have Republicans putting it all on the line to step up to save their country and are willing to lose their jobs, lose their seats in order to fight Trump, I think we should support them. I do. Wouldn't it be nice if Lindsey Graham was one of those people? But he's not. All we need is a few. So I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought.